Chairman. I really wish we had more people showing up to the Roundhouse to talk to our governor about enforcing immigration law, but that's a different subject. Let me thank you all for coming tonight to participate in your government, and I want to thank all those who have emailed us, specifically me or called me regarding this issue. I've received overwhelming support for this resolution from gun owners and non-gun owners, as well as Democrats and Republicans. What is telling is the bipartisan support for this resolution around the state that includes sheriffs of both parties, to include our sheriff in Sandoval County, who is a Democrat. I've not heard from one law enforcement officer who opposes this resolution and attack on our rights under the United States Constitution. I found a quote recently that said, quote, "Today we need a nation of Minutemen, citizens who are not only prepared to take up arms, but citizens who regard the preservation of freedom as a basic purpose of their daily life, and who are willing to consciously work and sacrifice for that freedom. The cause of liberty, the cause of America, cannot succeed with any lesser effort." Those words were spoken by President John F. Kennedy, who also happened to be a lifetime member of the NRA. He's a man who I admire as a student of history, who believed in a strong national defense. He was a president who cut taxes, and he was a president who was pro-life. I am the only commissioner sitting up here with military service that took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States with my life. I lived up to that oath for over 20 years as an Air Force officer, plus a tour in Afghanistan. And even today, after my retirement, I still deeply believe in that oath and the oath I took as an elected official. We can debate, as we have heard here tonight, both sides of the issue, and both sides make valid points, in my opinion. But I'm reminded by a great American patriot, Benjamin Franklin. His words from the 18th century were as valid then as they are today. Quote, "They who can give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." That is exactly what the Roundhouse is doing this session. While they may think their proposals are noble, others believe they are trying to disarm us by chipping away at our constitutional rights bit by bit. I fall on this side of the argument. I believe these are the first steps down a dangerous path to authoritarian rule and government control, where the few make the decisions for us all because they think they know what's good for the collective. Frankly, that scares me. One of my constituents who supports this resolution looked at it from a different angle and explained to me that one unintended consequence of the red flag confiscation bill would be to reduce the likelihood that those who genuinely need mental health services would not seek them out of fear of having their firearms taken away. This law actually has the potential to decrease public safety and may also affect our military veterans who often need help with PTSD. Today, many vets have firearms who use them for hunting or sport shooting, but there's also a lot of people who live in our county, specifically in Commissioner Eichwell and Commissioner Buck's district, who hunt to feed themselves or their families in rural areas of our county. While I also believe background checks are noble, we all know mandatory firearm background checks on private transfers is unenforceable, as our sheriff believes, but open to abuse. This is true because it creates a burden in a situation where a gun owner may have to prove an unknown chain of custody. How does one prove that a particular gun was given to them by a family member if there are no records? If one possesses a gun without records, then the New Mexico law might be applied to the owner and result in criminal charges. I also want to read an email from our sheriff, Jesse James Casillas, who is from the opposite party of mine. He wrote, quote, "I think it's common knowledge I am pro-Second Amendment and anti any gun legislation. I was amongst 29 of the sheriffs that opposed the bill. I was also at the Roundhouse today standing against it. To our sheriff, thank you for your support to the Constitution and fighting to protect law-abiding citizens from having their rights infringed. While I tried to understand Representative Damon Eli's utopian view of this, it is much more complicated with his bill, HB 83. This is, in my opinion, the most dangerous of all anti-gun bills currently in the session. Under this red flag law, we citizens forego due process under the 4th and 5th Amendments when law enforcement officers show up to your house in SWAT gear to take away your firearms and ammunition because there is an unsubstantiated complaint that diagnoses you with a mental health condition and a threat to you or others. The other issue Representative Eli failed to put in the law is that there's no provision for punishment for false claims and no aftercare plans once the guns are removed. The government literally arrives at your house heavily armed, and they seize your assets and leave without due process. This not only has potential to be dangerous to the victim, but to law enforcement tasked with carrying out this order where blood has already been shed in several instances of this case. Representative Eli also said it would be extremely rare that this would even happen. What he doesn't tell you is that in Maryland, it's quite common. In the 3 months since its implementation, Maryland's red flag gun safety law has prompted more than 300 protective orders across the state, according to law enforcement officials. Furthermore, we all know criminals acquire their guns from other criminals, and we have heard several people discuss the empirical data researched on versions of this law in Colorado and California and found it had no impact on crime. We also know most gun sales at gun shows have to go through a background check already, as federal firearms licenses, FFLs, are required to do so by law already on the books. The only ones not obligated to have those checks are private sales, which the majority of sales this bill would cover are between family members or friends. This imposes an additional burden on the law-abiding citizen and a tax specifically on exercising your Second Amendment rights. This bill directly affects poorer New Mexicans from exercising their rights. For the people in rural New Mexico, they may have to drive for hours to find the nearest FFL that is willing to perform a background check. These laws remind me of a previous Supreme Court justice I'm familiar with and a constitutional scholar. Justice Joseph Story remarked in 1840 that, quote, one of the ordinary modes by which tyrants accomplish their purposes without resistance is by disarming the people and making it an offense to keep arms. That is exactly what we are seeing in New Mexico and across our country from a leftist agenda that favors disarming our citizens in the name of protection from the state that, in my opinion, is not to be trusted, but always questioned. Are you done yet? 1 minute. And when we see that the state act, and when we see the state act as they are in Santa Fe by shutting people out of committee hearings, or a committee chairman talking about punishing those counties who speak up for what they believe, then why should we trust them when they speak openly about retribution to those who disagree with them? I will never, ever side with that type of government. I will always side with liberty because I know the state has an appetite for your wallet and your rights. Once one amendment goes down, the rest will go down like dominoes, and then we will become just like Venezuela, Cuba, Russia, Iran, and other anti-freedom loving countries. I will not stand by and let that happen to my country or you. I am in full support of this resolution. Thank you.